Life is a journey, so is the afterlife. Welcome to Zoom into Books with award-winning author Derek McFadden. What Death Taught Terrance is the book we're going to be discussing today. Derek McFadden began writing stories at 6 years old. He is a poet, author, editor, blogger, radio enthusiast, an unapologetic Seattle Mariners fan, and a former March of Dimes ambassador. Stricken at birth with a mild form of cerebral palsy and poor eyesight, Derek has worked his whole life to illuminate for others a life experience at once unique, fun, and at times harrowing. Welcome, Derek, to Zoom into Books. Please tell us the inspiration for this amazing book.
Thank you so much, Kathy. The inspiration for this book is my life, essentially. I was born in 1982 with a mild form of cerebral palsy. For me, that means I walk slowly. I'm a little coordination challenged, let's say. I wouldn't be good at playing sports, but I love to watch them. When I was born, the palsy happened because a doctor made a mistake. He pulled me out with forceps, and in doing so, changed my life forever. Not only did he give me the palsy, but he, at the same time, compromised my vision. So I am technically legally blind, and so it's a different kind of life than most people are used to. And what I found when I would read books is that the handicapped characters in books were either too broken. They were kind of the side character. You felt bad for them. It was sad. Oh, what a sad life this person has. Or they were the saint sent into the story to tell the able-bodied how to live. And I did not identify with either of those tropes, and I found them a little bit offensive because it was just sort of, what are you trying to communicate, author? And so I always said to myself, I'm going to write a story that I would have wanted to read when I was, that I would have wanted to read. And that story is What Death Taught Terrance. And one of the major influences in my life is It's a Wonderful Life, for sure. Freight camper movies are huge with me. And I love the idea that everybody's life matters. And sometimes, I'll be honest, sometimes I didn't feel like my life mattered all that much because of how sidelined I felt by certain things. I can't drive because of the eyes. So I'm always asking people for rides and stuff, and, feeling a little bit dependent on them. And so it was really important that I show not just readers, but also myself. I think the first draft of the book was probably therapy more than anything. And then once I realized, okay, this is going to be for other people to read, then I went into a different mode, which was, how do I write this for publication and not just for my desktop? And it took me 12 years to fully write it out. I believe I started in 2008 and finished the full write-up in 2019, and then went to trying to publish. And one of my favorite authors is Mitch Albom. This is definitely in that vein. So if you like Mitch Albom books, you would like this book. I love The Five People You Meet in Heaven and books like that. But what I always found was, like, I wanted more. I wanted more with the characters. I wanted more with what the lives were really about. And so I made sure that it's a more to me, it's a more in-depth read than a book like that. Whereas Mitch is writing a parable, I guess I am too, but it's hopefully more in depth. So
That's I didn't know about the birth process and
yeah,
how a mistake like that could result in cerebral palsy. Um,
yeah.
that's a frightening thing.
Well, most of and here's the thing about palsy, it is almost never uh, it's almost never hereditary. It's very rarely hereditary. It's usually a doctor's mistake. And I believe, my parents had thought about suing this doctor for malpractice, but by the time they thought about it, he had passed away. He was 70 years old. He was my great grandparents' general practitioner. So he should not have been in the room with a newborn. He refused to have an OBGYN in the room. I actually spoke to, which is interesting, an ex of mine, her aunt happened to be a nurse at that hospital, and she heard my story and she said, "Is your doctor so-and-so?" And I said, "Yeah, that's the doctor's name." And she said, "Honey, I was in the room." And I said, "How do you know?" And she goes, "You don't forget reattaching an infant's ear," because one of the things he also did when he pulled me out, he almost pulled my ear off my head. And they
Yeah.
had to get an infant plastic surgeon to reattach my ear. And then they told my dad that I had a 50-50 chance of surviving the night. They wheeled me away to the NICU and said, he has a 50-50 chance of surviving the night. Do you want to stay with him? And my dad said no. And the reason he said no was he said, I didn't want to fall in love with somebody that I might lose in the morning.
Oh my gosh. What a horrifying thing. That's awful.
Yeah.
Well, you certainly have overcome many obstacles. I know that you mentioned that it had taken 12 years to write
Yes.
the book, and you've got wonderful reviews. So tell the viewers, and we want to welcome everyone on Facebook with us today. If you have questions for Derek McFadden, please type them in the comments section, and we'll make sure that he gets your questions to answer by the end of the interview. Derek, what kind of writing? I know the writing process is different for every author, but for 12 years, tell us what the journey was.
So the journey was realizing I wanted to write this thing, knowing nothing about the business. I mean, I knew nothing 12 years ago. I knew I liked to write. That was all I knew. I knew nothing about publication. So I decided, okay, I'm going to write this thing. Like I said, the first draft is basically therapy. Like, what am I trying to communicate, and can I get it out? And I did that. And when the first draft was done, it was only 40,000 words, which is not a full book, especially this day and age. You almost need 50. You need at least 50 to be considered a full book. And so I kept refining, kept editing, got to about 53,000 words, and then I found somebody to help me kind of edit it, and it was sort of a reader. And I said, "Hey, can you read this and tell me where I'm going wrong?" And this woman, I met her on querytracker.net, which is usually someplace where you would find an agent, but it's also someplace where you can find beta readers. And she read my book and she said, "Okay, I see what you're trying to say. I see what this is trying to be. It's buried in a bunch of stuff. Let's see if we can dig it up and give you a full book out of it." And literally, this woman and I, she lived in Virginia. I live in Washington. So we were in completely different time zones and everything. But I think we did 2 years straight where we each weeknight would send scenes back and forth. Does this work? Does this work? What do you think of this? How about this? And eventually it turned into an 80,000 word book that I then went and had fully edited. I included, and you'll hear in the reading, there is a poem at the beginning of each chapter. So there's a poem at the beginning of chapter 1 and so forth. And the reason I do that is I really like the idea that a poem can make very clear what the plot will be for the coming section of the book. So that I feel like it hammers home the plot point that you're trying to get to. And then, so once I had my full manuscript, by that point, my father, who's also a writer, was querying agents and had an agent who wanted to represent him. And I had met this agent at a dinner with him. And she knew that I loved to read and that I was a discerning reader. And she needed a second reader. And she asked if I would be that for her. And so I had been doing that for years. So at that point, I kind of knew the business and I knew certain authors. And I asked one of those author friends, will you read this and see if it's any good? Because if it's not, I'll put it in a drawer. You know, I didn't know. And he read it in 3 days, and which is either good or really bad. It's either really good or really bad, because it's like either he really liked it or he quit after 5 pages. But he said, I want to talk to you right now about this book. And I said, okay. And he immediately got it. He said, I get what this is. It needs to be out now. It's important. And so at that point, I decided I'm going to really go for this thing. I queried and queried and queried. Just I got really close with a couple of agents, but for business reasons that are very inside, just couldn't. It didn't go. And my friend said, "Hey, you've got to independently publish this thing. You've got to get it out, because creatively you're a bit constipated, so you just got to get it out." And so I made sure that I had a hardcover version. I really wanted a hardcover version. When I would read as a kid, I loved the idea of hardcovers. They were just, that to me, that was like a real book. I mean, I know all books are real books, but I just thought hardcovers were amazing. And now it's available. A lot of times years ago for self-publishing and stuff like that, you couldn't do it. Now you can. So I went ahead and over most of 2019, 2020, I learned what I needed to learn to publish in hardcover, paperback. It's also in Kindle, and then it's in Audible, which you'll hear part of the Audible today. And I got a really, really good reader for that book, and that's BJ Harrison, and he is an amazing audiobook reader.
That's great. We're going to listen to an excerpt here in just a few minutes. How about giving the viewers a brief synopsis of the book so they know what the book's about particularly?
So, yeah. So, I mean, the book is about what the title says. It's What Death Taught Terrance. So the idea is Terrance is essentially me. He has the same palsy and the same eye issues that I do. I guess I would say he's the me that I think of myself as, and he passes away on the first page. It's not a spoiler. If he didn't die, there's no book. So he passes away on the first page, and he goes into essentially what will become a life review, and figuring out what his life has meant. What that means, though, it's not just full. It's a first-person book that is mostly told by Terrance, but is also told by the people who lived and were around him. So Terrance is able to garner different perspectives of experiences that he only, of course, had one experience of and one perspective of. What I wanted to do with this book was make it so that everybody has the perspective of their life that is fully theirs. They're the star of their own movie, but everybody else that's around you has a different perspective of that same life, because they aren't living in your body, in your hurts, in your pains, in your joys. They're living in theirs, so they are going to look at things differently. So if we can step back and see how everybody else sees us, it's something we don't do in life because it's really hard to do. But if you can step away from your life for a second and look at what your life has meant to other people, that's kind of what the point of Terrance is. And when the book is done, I want people to close the cover and think, hey, I've got a little from this. I learned from this something that I didn't know about myself, about this person. Maybe you're having issues with somebody and you can't figure out why. Well, if you could step back and kind of look at the life from their perspective instead of from yours all the time, and a book like this will help, I think. And it also is entertaining. Like, I wanted it to be I wanted you to walk away from it saying, I'll read that again. I wanted to be the kind of book that you'd want to read over and over and feel good about every time.
Well, you've set the stage. Let's go ahead and listen to an excerpt. And then I've got a couple questions here we'll come back to.
Okay. Let me share. Let's see. Let me share my screen. I'm going to put up my graphic there, and I should be sharing my sound. So
you're good. It looks good.
Okay. Let me share my sound here, and let's do this.
By B.J. Harrison. Many times mistaken.
The first part is a poem.
If anyone believes, erroneously, that God, who is to have brought forth heaven and earth, while his angels sang in untouchable harmony, birthed them by mistake, may I, with an implement I hope will never shy from my truth, humbly advise, let a prayer be sent from this poet's pen for all who wish it meant for them, anyone who requires proof, up into the universe's roofless expanse, that those who have yet to discover their gifts, given out of love, not by chance, shall have the option to call for help from up above when their lives seem rent or devoid of direction, knowing that call will be met with, do not fear life. There is no such thing as perfection. I am with you. You might feel alone, at times even crazy, but you are safe, under my protection, and nothing can be accomplished without faith. Like your parents before you, and theirs before them, you come from a God who is many times mistaken. Yet you are so far from a mistake. 1. Death, Part 1. Terrence McDonald is 55. The year is 2045. The TV is on, and I'm on the couch, leaning as far back as I can. My heavy, indecisive brown eyes, their lenses blurred ever since my tumultuous, too soon entrance into the world flutter between open and shut. I am half watching, half listening to a football game on a Sunday afternoon. Was that the doorbell? Who is it? I call out, expecting to hear my daughter, Megan's voice. These days she is the one person who visits me, the only person who knows I'm making my home in this little oasis, fashioned from wood felled by my own hand. Terry, it's Mom. I'm here to help you move. My mom? That's not possible. She's... Wait. To help me move? Oh, God. I rise from the couch and glance back at my lifeless body. 5'8" standing up, but now it's slumped over, grayish blue. A few stray locks of the hair I inherited from my father, still mostly pepper black, spill over into my unseeing eyes. Shit. I still had more I wanted to do, damn it. Was it my cerebral palsy? We've coexisted forever. Has it somehow, in its slow, indirect way, finally done me in? I turn back around toward the TV, and I see my mom materialize in front of me, a concerned look on her face. Are you okay? No, of course I'm not okay, I scream. So, is that it then? I'm dead, just like that? She doesn't say anything, but her silence says everything. How? How did I die? Mom puts her hand on my shoulder like she always did when I was a kid, and I was upset and needed some time to calm down. You don't remember? No, Mom, I don't remember. If I remembered, why would I ask? She's silent for another beat. If you don't remember, then it's probably best I stay quiet for now. My job is to take you home. I am home, I shoot back. You don't understand. Where I'm taking you, this is a different kind of home. This is the place where you'll find out what happens next. Is there any way around this? Any way at all? These words are as close as I've ever come to arguing with my mom. That's because arguing with her does not come naturally to me. And considering the life I have, I never thought I'd hear myself plead for it. No, Terry, I'm sorry. But there's not. You know that if there were a way, I'd tell you what it was. But this has been decided. I pull away from her. Am I frightened? No, not exactly, but I am disheartened. Before I can go too far, she takes my hand. Come with me, Terry. I love you. It's been so long since Mom said those words to me, I love you, that I'd forgotten how true and convincing they sounded in her voice, and how much I missed them, and her. Without warning, and without the white light-emitting tunnel I experienced as a kid, we're not in the cabin anymore, and I find myself in a house so familiar I am comfortable in seconds. The smells are familiar, the floor plan, the art on the walls. This is a replica of the home I shared with my wife before she got sick and I moved into the cabin. See, it's not so bad, Mom says. I picked it out and furnished it myself, just for you. It is a nice place. Much nicer than I'm used to these days, that's for sure. Not that I have anything but a vague idea where we are. Now that I've calmed down some, it isn't just this new house I'm appraising. I'm also getting my first real good look at Mom in 20 years. Hers is a face looking as youthful today as it appeared in the photograph announcing her entrance into womanhood. taken in her 18th year. I remember seeing this picture in a family album decades ago. You've got all the comforts you're used to, Mom explains, along with a couple you might have forgotten about. So, this is where I'll be living now? The frown on her face hints at the fact that things aren't that simple. Well, that depends on your appointment. But I sure hope you will. Your father and I are just down the street. Dad's here? Yes, he made it. She smiles. She told me as much before, years ago, on her final day. She'd said it twice, in fact. I'm not sure I'd believed her either time. My appointment? Everyone has an appointment when they first get here. What happens? Who is the appointment with? I can't tell you, Ter. Mom takes a seat in the first of 3 chairs arranged in front of my large television screen. This is the only liberty she's taken in the design. The original home had 2 chairs in front of this television, because 2 was enough for Maddie and me. But I sense Mom gave me the extra seat in case I should have company over. Those who have been through their own appointments, like me, are expressly forbidden from sharing any details with newcomers like you. Each appointment is different, based on the soul and the life it concerns. Oh, now I'm nervous, and not just because I get the feeling at this moment that Mom is spouting some section of a well-rehearsed monologue. I wonder if, at this appointment, everything in a person's life is considered. Yes, everything is considered, Mom says. I shoot her a confused glance. Did she just read my mind? Oh, I'm sorry. We don't often use spoken words or languages here. I mean, we can, and we will, especially in cases when explanations or announcements need to be delivered to a large number of people. God prefers spoken language himself. But it's more common, for those who have been home a while, to communicate telepathically. I thought that was what you were doing. I shake my head. Well, in a few days, once you're feeling acclimated, let me know. You can call me on this. Mom produces what looks like a cell phone. That's a direct line to me and me alone. When you're ready, I'll come and pick you up and take you to your appointment. Okay. But first, she thinks, get some rest. You look terrible. I am a little tired, but what do you expect? I'm dead. You're getting the hang of our telepathy already. She laughs, gives me a hug. I've got to get back to cook your father's pot roast, or he might go a little nuts. Sounds like Dad. A hungry Carl McDonald means an irritable, hard-to-deal-with Carl McDonald. I was going to say hard to live with, but the word doesn't fit. Mom pats my shoulder and disappears. This new home is going to mean some big adjustments for me.
We'll cut there. That is, and now if there's any questions, I am open to them. Anyway, so that is the first part of chapter 1.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay.
I was muted. I didn't realize that.
That's all right. That's all right.
We did have a question, but before I ask that, have you had a near-death experience yourself?
I had I had a dream when I was 6 years old, but it was not really. I wouldn't call it a dream. I would because I literally rose out of my body and looked back at my body, and I went through the white light tunnel that I reference in that first chapter, and in the book, that dream is fictionalized, and you'll see it. But I went up to what I would call the afterlife or heaven, and they told me at 6 years old, you're going to be a writer, and I was shown the books that I would end up writing. And yeah, I guess you could say that, yes, I have had something of a near-death experience. I can't say for sure if I was near death, but I definitely feel that. And so I definitely feel that there is something out there, and that there is something more after we leave this life. And that's another thing I kind of wanted to communicate with the book.
Well, this is very powerful. You want to stop sharing for a few minutes?
Sure, I'll do that. Yes. Hang on, here we go. Stop sharing. Yes. There you go.
You have an excellent narrator. He's doing a great job.
He's an amazing narrator. He's so good. He's done so many books. He's really, really good.
Well, it's a very unique concept, this storyline. And we were talking before we started the program. You said you were all ready to release this in February 2020.
Yeah.
And then COVID-19 happened.
Yeah, I mean, I published it, and then I had some events set up that just got scuttled for reasons. And yeah.
But what's interesting is the storyline is Terrance dies, and then he's got an appointment, we're assuming, with God.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have a retrospective. And
Yep.
Ironically, when your book was ready to release in February, we kind of all had
Yes.
a period
Yes.
of retrospection.
Oh, I feel you on that. Yes, for sure.
That no one had anticipated, and the pandemic affected a lot of people in a lot of different ways, not unlike your main character here in this story. So I think maybe the audience, your target audience of readers, is going to understand this on a much more personal level than they may have without staying at home.
I hope so. I hope you're right.
But it's really interesting, and we'll listen to another excerpt here in a little bit. We do have a question from Jay. You're also an editor. What would you say are the 2 or 3 main differences between being an author and an editor?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. So as an author, you, especially in the first draft, you're writing for yourself. And then as you go, you're going to try to write more for publication. But what's interesting, I came to editing because I didn't really like editing myself. I like being verbose and flowery, but what I've found is through editing other people, I know where to cut my own writing. And I think the main differences for me, it's collaborative. Editing is collaborative, a lot more than authoring has to be, unless of course you have somebody that you're writing a book for and they specifically want it written a certain way, then you might collaborate with them as an author. But as an editor, if you agree to edit an author, what you are saying is, I'm not trying to change your work. I am trying to make it better. So the key to being an author is you have your own author voice. And as an editor, you don't have a voice. You're trying to be true to the voice of the author that you're working with. I think those are the main differences. As an author, you have your own voice, and as an editor, you're trying to be true to a voice that the author's trying to achieve.
So you're able to wear 2 hats. You're able to be author and editor.
Yeah, I think it uses the 2 sides of the brain. I mean, I think there's the creative side that's being the author, And then there's the analytical side of editing, because editing is way more analytical than creative. The creative has been essentially done, and you're just trying to fine tune it.
So you do have a editing business, or did, is that correct?
I do, yes. That's it's my name, Derek McFadden, editor.com.
Okay.
And yeah.
I have posted these links in the comments section for those of you who'd like to get in touch with Derek. And I also know you have a podcast. Would you like to tell us about that?
We will be it's not out yet, but we are working on a podcast called Writing While Handicapped. And we will I'll be interviewing people who write books with handicapped characters, or who are handicapped and who write from that perspective. I really think it's interesting that people can write from that perspective, from the perspective that I write from. It's a with so many marginalized people these days, handicap is sort of lost in the shuffle. You have a lot of people, you have a lot of groups that are spoken for and heard, and then there are the handicapped, and a lot of times, depending on what they are handicapped with, it's hard to be heard. You know, I am very lucky with palsy. With my palsy, in the sense that I am verbal. There are people who have palsy who are not. And it is literally just, where was the damage in the brain? Where was the damage? If the damage was in your speech centers, then no matter how much you want to say, and no matter how much is in your mind, you won't be able to say it. So I feel very lucky, and in that sense, I feel a need and a want to communicate for those who can't.
I think that's terrific. And going back to the pandemic year we've just had, I think there's more and more people writing than ever before. And one thing about writing, it does kind of level the playing field.
Yes.
Everybody's got to be develop good writing habits, and find their own schedule that works well for them. What kind of writing schedule did you, I know it took you 12 years, which a long time, but it's also not that unusual for a first book to take 5, 10, 15 years sometimes.
Yeah.
And the second book comes out in 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times you have to get that first book out of you before you can go on. And tell first-time authors who are watching what kind of writing habits you found work for you.
Well, the writing habits that work for me probably wouldn't work for you. I'll be honest with you. Because my eyes are as bad as they are, the way that I will write is, I will say there is a scene I want to get down, and I will write the basics of that scene, and then I will go back and say, what are the things that need to be shown here, so that the person, so that the reader feels like I am immersing them in the story. The first writing for me is just making sure the scene works. And then what I will often do, because I can't see what you can see or what somebody else can see, I will have a beta reader, and I will say to them, what do you think needs to be here? Because number one, with Terrance, it was easier because his vision issues were my vision issues. So I could say, I can only see this or that, and I can communicate that. But if I'm writing an able-bodied character, then I need to know what that able-bodied character can see, because I won't be able to see all of it. So then I'll I'll get a beta reader involved or somebody that I trust, a writer group. There's a writers group that I'm part of that, you know, that I trust to where I read my stuff. But a lot of my 12 years of writing was just drafting and realizing it was wrong and getting it right, and making it right again, or making it more right than it was the first time. And you know, the reason I say it might not work for everybody is you can edit your own stuff into the ground. You can absolutely edit too much, and so you have to know where to cut and where to stop. If you don't, you'll be editing for the rest of your life. So I was very clear once I was finished, and once I knew it was done, I let it go. I then, you know, just went to querying. But as far as the writing process goes, yeah, it was. It's a lot of knowing the scene you need, and for me, once I had those scenes down, then it became okay. Now I need to do characterization to really show my character, and that's when the story began to deepen. Was when I could really get to the characterization of the book and show you who Terrance was and show you who the people around him were, because we don't live this life solitary unless we're on like some island by ourselves. We all have to be humans together, which means we can't avoid other people. As much as some of us might want to, we can't avoid other people. So so your life's going to affect other people, and the question is how. And that's kind of what that book is about.
That's true. And I have another author who is legally blind, and he manages to get through, you know, he's written great environmental thrillers. And a lot of people who have no handicaps use dictation. And this can be a blessing for people really who can't see as well as they would like. Have you done the dictation, maybe use Dragon software or something like that?
So when I was in school, Dragon was just starting, like it was brand new. And the interesting thing is I'm sure they've improved since, because I'm old. But essentially the first draft of Dragon didn't work for me, and the reason was I could type faster than I could dictate. I type with 2 fingers and that's it, but I am quick at it. So I'm very used to, and part of it is I need the tactile experience of typing on the keyboard. I can't do touch screens, like people will text touch screen. No, that doesn't work. I need to like feel the keyboard underneath my fingers, and I don't know, as a writer, there's something to that. It just feeling the word come to be under your fingers is a thing.
That's interesting too. Let's listen to a next clip. We have a few minutes left here. Let's listen to the next clip, and then I do have a couple more questions for you from the viewers.
Sure. I mean, like, let me go back to sharing, make sure my sound is good. Okay, it is. And I will restart. I'm going to guess it's taken me the better part of 3 days to convince myself I'm really done. Secondly, that I'm ready to faint.
The volume is not up.
Oh, is my volume not working? I'm sorry. Am I not share? Hang on, let me share it again. I may not have hit the OK button. Let me.
Oh, you're not screen sharing either.
Oh, that's a problem. Okay, there we go. Okay, let me now let me find where we were here. Okay. That's my bad. Okay. Here we go. I may have to backtrack a bit here. Yeah.
Time has passed because, as it turns out, this new home of mine, furnished by time, is ready to face whatever might. I'm spent resting and recuperating. It's taken me the better part of 3 days spent resting and recuperating from life to convince myself I'm really dead, and secondly, that I'm ready to face whatever might be in store for me. I have to guess at how much time has passed because, as it turns out, this new home of mine, furnished by my mom, does not include a clock, not one. I only discovered this flaw after she departed, so there was no way to readily remedy it. Stores specializing in timepieces aren't plentiful in the afterlife. Wait, that's not true. Maybe they are. I don't know what lies beyond these 4 walls yet. I've barely moved since I got here. But I am as prepared as I'll ever be for my personal appointment. So I pull out the cell phone Mom gave me, an older model, ubiquitous in my childhood, for just this situation. It doesn't require dialing. My connection to her is immediate. "Terry," she says. "Hi, Mom. You're ready for your appointment?" "I guess." "Okay." She pauses. A bit too long for your run-of-the-mill pause. Something's bothering her. "Okay, I'm glad to hear it." "What's wrong? You're gonna pick me up, right?" "I was planning on it, but it looks like your Grandpa Jack needs to be picked up today." "Oh, you mean he's—" "Yep." "I'm sorry, Mom. Boy, he lived forever, didn't he?" She laughs. "Pretty darn close. I'm just glad he got to go out the way he wanted, peacefully, in his sleep. Anyway, your dad and I have to be there for him, but I'm sending your old friend Charlie out to you. He'll get you where you need to go, no problem." Charlie? How nice it will be to see him again. It's been a long time. This isn't the only thought I have upon hearing Charlie will be here soon, but it's the only thought I feel comfortable sharing, in case Mom can read my thoughts through the phone as easily as she could standing in the same room. "Okay, thanks. Tell Grandpa Jack I say hi." "I will. And you call me when you and Charlie get to your appointment. Otherwise, you'll have me worried." "Sure thing." We hang up, and I wait. There's the sound of tires churning gravel, and then a knock at the door 20 minutes later. I think. I answer it. "Charlie Ewell's limousine service." He smiles and nods toward a jet-black vehicle closely related to a town car that's parked nearby. I step back, blink, once, twice. He's still there. My mind doesn't know how to make sense of this. It really is Charlie. Well, of course it is. Mom told you he was on the way. Yet despite my mom's assurance, there is this part of me that snickers at most religions, labels them not for me, and I never warmed all the way up to the idea of heaven. Therefore, even after seeing Mom again, I doubted my old friend Charlie would show up. You're telling me Charlie will be here? Charlie? Yeah, right. Just like I couldn't bring myself to argue with her. "Charlie can't possibly be on his way, Mom." I can't deny it now. "It's you," I say. "Sure it's me," Charlie says, as though he's just shown up to my most recent and last birthday party. Cheer on his face, a gift in his hand. "Like, really you?" "Yeah, it's really me." "How?" "I know it's a lot to take in when you're new," he says, "or when you've just come back. I was so glad when your mom called and asked me if I would pick you up. I've missed you so much." "Same here," I admit. The initial shock of seeing Charlie is ebbing slowly, like adrenaline leaching out of my bloodstream after an earthquake. "It's so good to see you, Charlie." We enfold each other in a backslapping, "how have you been" hug. When we're apart again, he says, "And you, Terry, it's just now dawning on me how odd this circumstance is." True, but under what other circumstances would we see each other? Good point. In one of your dreams, maybe? You ready to get going? Sure. Is there a set time we have to be there? My mom always said it's better to be early than late, no matter what the occasion. Charlie throws his keys in the air, catches them, as we make our way down my temporary home's front steps. "Don't worry about time anymore," he reveals. "Time is a human invention. It is seldom kept here." That would explain the lack of clocks. "Which always throws newcomers off. And don't be nervous. Sure, no one who's been through an appointment can tell you what your appointment will be like. That's because appointments are unique to each soul. But they aren't to be feared. Your appointment is a place where you will get a chance to ask questions and learn." Charlie flashes a quick grin. He opens one of the back doors for me, and I see that in the car rides an elegant woman. "Terrence McDonald, this is my wife, Patty Ewell." Patty turns in her seat, puts out her hand. "It truly is a pleasure to meet you, Terrance. I've heard a lot about you." I give her my hand, but can find no words. I've never met Patty before. She passed away the night I made Charlie's acquaintance.
So that is chapter 1 of the book, and I'm pretty proud of it.
It's wonderful. It really is. And as I said, your narrator is fantastic. One of the questions that we have is there a sequel coming for this book?
There is something of a sequel. I have a sequel. What I would call a sequel short story is coming soon through an anthology published by a publisher author friend of mine who may in fact be in this chat right now.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yes.
He's a big supporter, I can tell.
Yes, he is, and I appreciate it.
So you've chosen, I don't know if it's one of the hardest forms of writing, but writing in retrospect, flashback, so to speak. Do you think your sequel will be further?
The sequel will be a tad different, just because it goes from where the story ends, and so Terry's story is a bit concluded in a way. So it goes from there to what he does after the end of the book. So it's a tad different in that sense. It's still a first-person novel, and we're still doing something of a retrospective for someone else, but it's not about him necessarily. He's in the book and he's a character, or he's in the story, he's a character in the story, but it's not the same. It's very different in that sense.
Oh, that's great. I'll ask you the question. We're almost out of time here. I'll ask you the question I ask all the authors. It's been a very tough 18 months for most of the world. And I know that you probably haven't had an opportunity to get out and meet people, have your book, do a book signing. But thus far, I'd like for you to share with us your most memorable book experience.
Oh, wow. Okay. My most memorable book experience would have to be, and it was not a personal, like I wasn't there with the person, but it was a review that was left at Goodreads for my book. And it was somebody who had read my book and loved it. And they loved it because they had relatives who had palsy and who had lived a life similar to mine. And they loved the fact that they felt like they could be in their relatives' shoes through my book. And just reading that, for an author like to read something like that, is it's indescribable. It's weird to say indescribable as you're an author and you're supposed to describe things, but that was beyond. Like, I had a certain sense of how my book might go or how it might end up, but once your book is no longer yours and it's out in the world, it becomes essentially the property of the reader, and they will take from it what they will take from it, and they will give back from it, or to it, or to the author, what they can. And so to get something back like that was absolutely incredible.
That is incredible. It's once you're able to start getting out and telling people about your book, I know you're going to get good feedback for sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
I would encourage everyone to pick up a copy of this book. It is available on Amazon. And briefly tell us about Amazon Smile.
Yeah, I mean, I use Amazon Smile because they a portion of each of the like anything you buy there, a portion of that is given to the charity of your choice, and the charity of my choice is March of Dimes. I was a March of Dimes poster child / ambassador, which means that after March of Dimes finished the whole thing with polio, and polio was eradicated, they then moved into trying to eradicate birth, and so I've always had a connection to them.
That's great. I know there are a lot of good causes on Amazon Smile too. And I have posted your links in the Facebook feed, but would you please tell people how they could get in touch with you? And I assume that you do virtual and in-person visits when you can, or speaking engagements.
Oh, for sure. Yes, I will talk to you via Zoom. I mean, I will talk to you as much as you want me to talk to you. I have no problem with that. I can talk to people. So editing, it's DerrickMcFaddenEditor.com. You can contact me there from that website. It just has a contact form, easy to do. I'm on Goodreads. If you want to become my Goodreads friend, go ahead. I will accept. I love Goodreads. I will accept people on there. And yeah, I'm also, if you want to visit our Facebook page, it's facebook.com/whatdeathtaught. And we also have, like I said, we have audio, we have Kindle, we have hardcover, and we have a paperback version. So however you want the book, you can get it.